All right, hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep today, and well, this one's been requested a ton. We're going deep on GuyTV, the Israeli YouTube guy. You guys seem really interested in this story. And to do it right, well, we've got a pretty diverse stack of sources. We're talking Hebrew biographical stuff, video critiques from other YouTubers, even interviews. Some of them get into some pretty serious allegations, by the way. So yeah, buckle up. We're going to unpack how this guy rose to fame, his unique style of humor, and yeah, the controversies that kind of followed him around.
Yeah, it's really a story about what it means to be internet famous, especially in a place like Israel, right? I mean, the YouTube scene there, it's a little more, I guess you could say, self-contained, because of the language barrier, mainly Hebrew. But this guy TV, he built a massive following there, like even bigger than Aviel Basin for a bit. Aviel Basin's a pretty big name in Israel, so to surpass him, mainly using Hebrew, that's got to be pretty impressive.
Oh, absolutely. Makes you wonder what it was about his content that made him stand out like that. And, our sources in Hebrew, they say he actually started his channel back in 2013.
Right.
Like way back. But get this, his name was the Hologen41. And all he did were Minecraft videos. I mean, talk about a throwback.
It shows how YouTubers need to change with the times, right? Back then, Minecraft was like the biggest thing. GuyTV, he clearly knew what he was doing. He understood what people wanted.
But then in 2014, boom, total rebrand. Wiped his channel clean and was reborn, basically. Yeah. That's when he became GuyTV, the comedic commentator, the one everyone knows.
And that's when those viral videos segments started, right? He'd find these trending clips, sometimes in Russian or Japanese even, sometimes Indian videos, and he would just riff on them. That kind of like funny but also critical style. Classic YouTube,
Yeah, totally. And he even had his own word for his fans, right? The Cheryl.
Oh, you mean his catchphrase, Sarlo, which is like, well, what's up, Cheryl? Yeah, that became his whole thing. It was like you were in on this joke with him, part of a special club. And it wasn't just those viral videos either. He did vlogs, challenges, even song parodies. He really did it all.
He did, didn't he? Like he even had these recurring bits. Criticism of life was one where he'd like make fun of Israeli society, and then there was Downs, where he'd basically roast popular music.
Oh yeah, and don't forget the Photoshop stuff. He'd take pictures of politicians and, well, let's just say he got creative.
He definitely pushed the boundaries. It's like he was testing what you could do on YouTube,
Yeah.
Especially coming from Israel. And it worked. He wasn't just making videos, he was building a brand.
He was. Remember Guy Tiki? That whole line of merchandise, the bags and stuff, sold out like crazy.
Yeah, and he even had a book, the GuyTV Survival Guide, published with, I think it was Yediath Books. And then there was that web series, Living in Harda. He was a cameraman for that.
He was going all in on being an entrepreneur, not just a YouTube guy, but a brand.
Totally. And you could see how that kind of ambition goes hand in hand with how his content evolved. But, well, there's that darker side to his story too.
Yeah, we've got these sources that talk about some, well, pretty serious accusations against him. It makes you think, The internet, it lets people be creative, connect with others, but it also, well, it can breed controversy and conflict pretty easily.
Yeah, you're right. And we've got to talk about those allegations. They've had a real impact on his career, and we've got interviews, articles, all sorts of stuff that paints, honestly, a pretty concerning picture. Like his ex-girlfriend, she accused him of financial exploitation, basically using her for money and even emotionally abusing her. She said he borrowed money and promised to pay it back, but never did. And when she asked for it, well, she claims he threatened her.
And there's that screenshot, right? The one going around. It's of a bank transfer, supposedly from him to her, for 6 shekels with a message that said, Hesik, which means like groupie for 6 shekels. I mean, that's pretty bad, don't you think?
Yeah, it's not a good look, that's for sure. And those aren't the only accusations either. Legal Rez, another YouTuber, she came forward too. She says that he stole from her when he visited her place. And even worse, that he involved minors in some of the things he was doing.
Yeah, we saw those claims too.
These are serious accusations. It really makes you question who the real GuyTV is behind all the jokes and videos.
Absolutely. And it's not just the accusations themselves, it's that they seem to be part of a pattern. Like on top of everything else, we've also got a teenage girl claiming he was inappropriate with her during a phone call. All these women are even thinking about going to the police together. It's a situation that needs a lot more scrutiny.
Yeah, it's like his whole online image, the one he built so carefully, it's starting to crumble. So where do we go from here? Well, let's see how GuyTV himself reacted to all this. From what we've gathered, his response has been, well, kind of confusing, to put it mildly.
It's almost like a textbook example of how not to handle your online reputation, especially these days, on social media, saying nothing can be just as bad as saying the wrong thing. And GuyTV, well, he seems to be doing a bit of both.
He's made a few comments, yeah, calling the women jealous exes, but he hasn't given any proof or anything to back that up. And then there's that weird statement he made, which, that means I am Jesus. What do you make of that?
Honestly, I don't even know. It's such a strange thing to say. Could be him trying to distract everyone, could be a joke. Who knows? Maybe some kind of messed up way of making himself seem bigger than he is. Whatever it was, it definitely didn't help.
And even though people have asked him for interviews, wanted to hear his side of the story directly, he's refused, almost like he's hoping this whole thing will just blow over.
Yeah, but the internet never forgets. And it makes you wonder, right? As someone who's into all this online content, how do you figure out who to believe? How do you tell what's true when information spreads so fast and often without any context?
It's a tough question, for sure, especially with someone like GuyTV, whose whole career is built on this carefully crafted online persona. But there's another piece of this puzzle we need to look at. The people who have criticized him. The other YouTubers, I mean. Their perspectives adds a whole other layer to this already pretty complicated story.
It's wild, isn't it? I mean, all these people making videos about him, some funny, some serious. It really shows you how things work on YouTube, like how quickly things can change, who has the power, all that.
Yeah, and some of these critiques are just savage, but in a way that's, I don't know, entertaining. Like, they're going after his content, his whole style. Some of them even speculate about his mental state just based on how he's acting in his videos lately.
It just shows you how raw and unfiltered online comments can be, right? But the interesting thing is a lot of these YouTubers, they use humor. Like, they're calling him out, sure, but they're doing it in a way that's, I don't know, funny, engaging even. Have you ever watched one of those critique videos and like found yourself laughing even if you didn't agree with what they were saying?
Oh, totally. It's like its own genre or something. Like, there's this one where this guy's just ripping apart one of GuyTV's music videos. He's making fun of everything, the visuals, the lyrics, even does this impression of GuyTV's voice that's so over the top. But what got me was he actually started by saying he used to be a fan of GuyTV back in the day. Yeah. So it wasn't all just hate, you know?
That's a good point. It shows how people's opinions can change over time, especially online. And it makes you think, great, how do YouTubers keep things fresh? How do they stay creative and keep up with what people want? I mean, we've seen GuyTV try different things, push the limits, but maybe at some point he just lost his way.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if the pressure got to him, you know, having to stay relevant, always making new stuff. I saw this other critique video. The guy's analyzing one of GuyTV's recent videos, right? And he just pauses it, zooms in on GuyTV's face and goes, look at his eyes. He's either totally exhausted or on something. Enhance. Like, it's so ridiculous, but it also kind of reflects what some fans are worried about.
Yeah, that concern for him, even if it's played up for laughs, it adds a whole other layer to this story. It reminds you that behind these online personas, there are real people with real problems.
Totally. And it's something we forget sometimes. You know, when you're watching online stuff, it's easy to judge, to criticize, but it's easy to forget there's a human being on the other side of the screen.
You're right. And it brings up this whole idea of, well, cancel culture, you know, that if someone does or says something offensive, they should be boycotted, basically erased from the internet. Now, whether that applies to GuyTV is debatable, but it's worth thinking about.
Definitely. It's a complicated thing. No easy answers. Like, where's the line between holding someone accountable and just like piling on? And what about the impact all this public scrutiny has on people's mental health?
Yeah, it's something we're all still figuring out as a society. The internet gives everyone a voice, a platform, but it's also made it so easy to tear people down.
But let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about GuyTV's content again, specifically his humor. Because even with all this controversy, he was really funny. And a lot of people connected with that.
Oh, for sure. He was playful, kind of irreverent, always pushing boundaries. He'd make fun of authority figures, social norms, even other YouTubers. And that whole thing with the Photoshop and the politicians, that was clever and kind of cutting.
I think that's a big part of why he got so popular, especially at first. He wasn't just making people laugh. He was giving them a way to laugh at things that frustrated them, whether it was politics, social rules, or just like the absurdity of everyday life.
He tapped into this feeling that people had, like this frustration with how things are and this desire to challenge it all. And he did it in a way that was easy to understand, entertaining. And that's why his catchphrase, that "what's up, Charlotte" thing, it wasn't just a greeting. It was like a way to belong, to be part of this group that gets it, that finds humor in all the mess.
He built his own little world, his Charlotte. And for a while, it felt like it was getting bigger every day. But now, with all these allegations, it's hard to say what's going to happen to GuyTV and everything he built.
It just goes to show the internet is a weird place, full of contradictions. You can become famous overnight, and just as quickly, it can all disappear.
It really highlights how important it is to be a good person, to be real, and to treat people with respect, especially online, when anyone can be an influencer. But before we wrap up, we got to go back to those allegations. We need to really unpack them. They're the core of this whole story, and they have big implications, not just for GuyTV, but for anyone who uses the internet to build a following and a brand. It's heavy stuff, isn't it? We've talked about his rise, his humor, the whole thing, but we can't ignore these allegations. They're serious. We have to really dig into them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got a lot to work with here. Interview transcripts, articles, even stuff from social media, and it all paints a pretty messed up picture.
Yeah.
So let's start with what his ex-girlfriend said, right? Those accusations are the most detailed and honestly the most disturbing.
Right.
She claims he basically tricked her into giving him money, took advantage of her feelings, promised to pay her back, all that, but he never did. And when she tried to talk to him about it, she says he got really verbally abusive, even threatened her.
Yeah, we saw those claims too.
And there are even these leaked recordings, audio recordings that seem to back up what she's saying.
Right.
Like you can hear him being really mean to her, calling her names, just completely ignoring her when she asks about the money. It's tough to listen to be honest.
It's a good reminder that emotional abuse, it can be just as bad as physical abuse. And what's really worrying is, the power dynamic. I mean, he was this big YouTube star and she was a fan. She obviously trusted him.
Right. And then there's that whole thing with the 6 shekels.
Yeah.
Right. That transfer he sent her after she went public with the accusations. With that message, the groupie for 6 shekels thing, it just feels so, I don't know, so calculated. Like he was trying to embarrass her, make her look bad.
Totally. It's like he doesn't care. He doesn't feel bad about it. And it seems like that's how he's reacted to the other accusations too, just brushing them off.
Right. Like Legal Rez, the other YouTuber who said he stole from her, she claims he even involved underage kids in some of the things he was doing. And that's a whole other level of serious.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then there's the teenage girl, right, who said he was inappropriate with her on a phone call.
Right. It's like it's a pattern.
It is. It's hard to ignore.
And of course, we have to remember these are just accusations. He hasn't been found guilty of anything. But I mean, when you see so many people saying the same things, all these different sources, it's definitely concerning.
It is. And the way he's responded, or rather hasn't responded, hasn't really helped. He's made a few comments, calling them jealous exes and all that, but no proof. No real explanation.
Right. And that whole I am Jesus thing, I still don't get it.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so bizarre. It's like he's trying to change the subject, avoid actually talking about what happened.
Yeah. And he keeps refusing to do interviews, to sit down and tell his side of the story.
It's like he thinks if he ignores it long enough, it'll all just go away.
Yeah, but that's not really how the internet works, is it?
Not really. We've seen it happen before with other famous people online and offline. When you have these kinds of accusations, well, people don't forget, public opinion, it can change really fast and it can be pretty unforgiving.
Yeah, it can. And GuyTV, I mean, his online image, his whole brand that he built, it's definitely taking a hit. And it brings us back to that idea of, well, cancel culture, right? Some people might say he's being unfairly attacked, that it's gone too far. Others might say he's just facing the consequences of his actions.
It's complicated. No easy answers, like you said before. But one thing's for sure, this whole thing with GuyTV, it's a cautionary tale. It shows you what can happen when you get internet famous, the good and the bad, all the possibilities, but also the risks.
It does. And it shows how important it is to be a decent person, to use your platform responsibly, especially when you have that much influence.
So what happens to GuyTV now? I don't know.
Yeah.
Will he be able to come back from this? Will there be legal action? We'll have to wait and see. But one thing's clear. His story shows us just how powerful the internet is. It can be used for good or for bad. And the choices we make online, they matter.
They do. The internet is full of possibilities, yeah. Creativity, connection, all that. But it's also a place where reputations can be made or broken in an instant. And it's a place where we all have a responsibility to be careful, to think about what we're doing, and to be critical of the things we see and hear.
You're right, absolutely. Well, this has been quite a journey, hasn't it? Digging into GuyTV's world. We've seen his rise, his humor, and, well, this dark side that's come out.
Yeah, we've seen it all.
The accusations, his reactions, what other YouTubers are saying, everything. And we've probably left you with more questions than answers.
Probably, yeah.
But that's what a deep dive like this is all about, right?
Yeah.
It's about getting you curious, making you think, challenging you to grapple with these complex issues.
It is. And it's about going beyond the surface, understanding how the online world really works.
So what do you think? What are your takeaways from all this? How does GuyTV's story resonate with you?
Yeah.
What lessons can we learn from it, both the good and the bad? Keep those questions in mind as you navigate the internet. It's only going to get more complex.
And remember, in this digital age, being able to think for yourself, to be critical, that's the most important skill you can have.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that's it for this deep dive. We'll be back next week with another one, based on your requests, of course. Until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and thanks for diving in with us.